Ever felt like you're just drowning in data? Spreadsheets, reports, dashboards everywhere. And you just wish, your data could simply talk to you, tell you what's actually happening and why. Yeah, you're definitely not alone there. Dealing with all that information, that constant pressure for quick, actionable insights, it's a big challenge for so many of us.
It really is. And that's exactly where we're seeing this pretty remarkable breakthrough happening. Imagine your data, right? Not just sitting passively in a database, but actually conversing with you, explaining things. Well, recent leaps in generative AI, when you combine them with powerful data platforms like Snowflake, they're making this happen. It's through something genuinely transformative called prompt-driven analytics.
Prompt-driven analytics. Okay, that sounds fascinating, a real leap. So our mission today for you listening is really to break this down. We want to unpack what prompt-driven analytics really is, look at its whole life cycle, the PDLC, as they call it, and see how it actually turns raw company data into these intelligent, automatically generated stories or narratives. And everything we're talking about today comes directly from a pretty deep exploration of how Snowflake and generative AI are starting to work together in really powerful ways. Okay, so let's dig in. When we talk about prompt-driven analytics, what are we actually talking about here? What does that mean?
Right. So at its core, prompt-driven analytics, or PDLC, it's basically a system, and it's designed specifically to transform all that raw enterprise data you've got into what we're calling intelligent narratives.
Intelligent narratives.
Yeah, think of it like this. You're going beyond the usual static reports, the dashboards you stare at. Instead, you're generating explanations that are dynamic, that are actually understandable.
Okay, so less like looking at a chart and more like getting an explanation.
Exactly. It's the difference between, say, looking at a graph showing sales numbers dipping and having your data system actively explain to you why sales dropped last quarter, or maybe point out where your inventory bottleneck really is. It kind of shifts things from data you have to analyze to data that actively does some of that analysis for you.
That sounds incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
But how is it really different from, the traditional BI dashboards we already have? They're supposed to give us insights too, right?
That's a great question. And it really gets to the key differentiator here, which is dynamic template generation.
Dynamic template generation.
Yeah.
Explain that a bit.
Sure. So with your traditional dashboards, a lot of the logic, how things are shown, what calculations are done, it's often hard-coded. Someone decided that beforehand. Here, the templates that generate the insights, they're created from curated context, from the actual data and business rules you feed it.
Ah, okay. So not fixed rules, but rules based on the current situation.
Precisely. It means your prompts, the questions you ask the business, can adapt in real time. They can adjust to different variables. Maybe you looking at sales in a specific region 1 minute, then a different product line the next, or a unique time frame. The system adapts, and Snowflake is really foundational to all this. It's prepping the data, handling the scale, the speed, and importantly, the security and governance needed.
Right. You need that solid base.
Absolutely. And what's really clever is that these prompt templates, they aren't just throwaway things. They get stored, they're versions, so you know which version you used, and they can be reused. There's full auditability. And then the large language models, the LLMs, the AI brains like GPT-4 or Claude,
Yeah.
they get called seamlessly through something called external functions in Snowflake. Think of them like secure gateways. They let Snowflake talk to these outside AI services safely. It basically extends Snowflake's own intelligence dramatically.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The sources talk about Snowflake, plus this PDLC creating a self-evolving insight engine. That sounds almost like science fiction. What does self-evolving actually mean for someone, trying to make sense of their data day to day?
Yeah, it does sound a bit futuristic, but it's actually quite practical. It essentially means you're building an intelligent assistant that genuinely gets smarter over time. It learns how to answer your toughest business questions better each day.
How does it do that? How does it get smarter?
Well, the self-evolving part really comes down to two key things. First, the system can automatically scale. It can handle a wider range of business questions without needing a human to go in and rework the logic every single time you ask something new.
Okay, so less manual tweaking.
Right. And second, and this is, I think, truly transformative, the responses the AI generates, they aren't just delivered and forgotten. They are stored, they get evaluated, and there's this continuous feedback loop. So the system consistently improves, it refines the insights it provides over time, it literally learns from its own output.
Wow. Okay, it's refining its own understanding based on how well it answered before.
Exactly. Refining its ability to give accurate, relevant explanations.
So, if this is a self-evolving insight engine, how does it actually get built? How do you maintain something like that? Our sources lay out a pretty clear prompt development lifecycle. Maybe we can walk through that step by step. How do you create these intelligent narratives?
Absolutely. Let's walk through the PDLC. It usually involves about 7 distinct stages. It guides you right from the initial idea all the way to a fully automated insight generator.
Okay, stage one.
Stage 1 is business need and use case identification. Pretty straightforward, right? This is where you clearly define the problem you're trying to solve. What do you need the prompt to do? Is it summarization, generating a complex SQL query maybe, classifying data? And Snowflake, since it holds your core data, naturally serves as the source of truth here. You often start by looking at the BI models you already use, maybe dashboards in Snowsight or reports from Tableau or Power BI.
Makes sense. Figure out what you need first, then what?
Then comes a really crucial step. Data preparation and curation, stage 2. This is where you take all that raw data and you clean it, organize it, and specifically prepare it so the AI can actually understand the context and give you good answers.
So prepping the ingredients for the AI.
Exactly. It involves using Snowflake's powerful tools, things like Snowpark, which is great because it lets you use familiar languages like Python or Scala right inside Snowflake alongside good old SQL. You use these to transform the data, curate the relevant data sets. It's like taking a messy pile of notes and structuring them perfectly before you try to write a report based on them.
Got it. Cleaned up relevant data. Stage 3.
Stage 3 is prompt design and prototyping. This is where the creativity comes in. You draft the actual prompt templates, the instructions for the AI, and importantly, you build in those dynamic variables we talked
It's
about.
like the region example.
Precisely. And these templates, along with the variables they use, they get stored right within Snowflake tables. Then you use things called UDFs, user-defined functions. These are like little custom code snippets you create in Snowflake to dynamically swap in the actual values for those variables when the prompt runs.
Okay, so template plus variables, stored in Snowflake, ready to be assembled. What's next?
Stage 4. LLM integration and execution. This is connection point. Snowflake seamlessly connects to those big, large language models, OpenAI, Anthropic, whichever you choose. It uses those Snowpark external functions we mentioned earlier to basically call the LLMs API. And it securely sends your curated Snowflake data along as the context for the prompt. So the AI gets the question and the relevant data it needs to answer it right from within your secure platform.
Right, the actual call to the AI happens here.
Yep. Then stage 5 is super important. Evaluation and fine-tuning. You can't just trust the AI blindly, right? So the responses it generates get tested. The results get logged. The quality gets assessed.
How do you assess the quality?
Well, the system stores the prompt and the response together as pairs in Snowflake. Then you can run analytics on them, check for relevance, accuracy. You can even look for things like toxicity or those hallucinations AIs sometimes have. This whole stage is about refining the AI's understanding and making sure the outputs are trustworthy.
Okay, makes sense. Check in the homework. Stage 6.
Stage 6, deployment and automation. You've tested it, you're happy, now you move your prompt workflow into production. You can schedule these prompts to run automatically using Snowflake tasks. They're like built-in schedulers. And for more complex setups, you can achieve full automation using tools like streams and tasks together in Snowflake or integrating with external orchestrators like dbt Cloud or Airflow.
So it runs on its own schedule.
Exactly. And finally, stage 7. Monitoring and feedback loop. This isn't a one-time setup, it's ongoing. You continuously monitor how the prompts are being used, you build dashboards, maybe using Snowsight, Snowflake's own UI. You track KPIs, key performance indicators for the prompts, things like response time, maybe user satisfaction scores if people are interacting with it. This feedback loop is what keeps the system improving, ensuring the insights stay accurate and useful over time. That's the self-evolving part in action.
That's a really clear breakdown. 7 stages from idea to automated evolving insights. Now, to make this really concrete, you mentioned our sources have a great example analyzing a sales drop. Could you walk us through how that PDLC process would actually apply in a real-world scenario like that one?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great practical example. Let's say your goal is to figure out why sales dropped in, let's call it region A, over the last 3 months.
Okay, common business problem.
Very common. So, first step, data setup within Snowflake. You probably start with your main raw sales data table. But you don't want the AI looking at everything, so you'd likely create a focused view, let's call it VW sales context. This view would filter the data just for region A and just for the last 3 months. This gives the AI precisely the context it needs, nothing more, nothing less.
Right, focus data.
Then the prompt template. Following stage 3, you'd create and store a reusable template. It might look something like, based on the last 3 months of sales data for region, explain the reasons for the observed sales trends. See that region placeholder? That's the dynamic variable. This template gets stored in maybe a prompt templates table in Snowflake.
Okay, template's ready?
Next, stage 4, assembling the prompt. Before calling the AI, a process inside Snowflake, maybe a stored procedure, builds the final prompt. It takes that template and automatically replaces region with the actual value, which is region A in this case. So the final prompt is tailored.
Got it. Filled in the blank.
Exactly. Then comes the LLM column logging, stage 4 and 5 happening together here. Snowflake uses an external function, maybe called extcillium, sends this final assembled prompt over to the AI model. The LLM processes it using the context data provided and sends back its response, the explanation for the sales drop. And crucially, that response, along with the prompt that generated it and a timestamp, gets logged immediately into maybe a prompt logs table in Snowflake.
So you have a record of everything.
Complete audit trail. Now, for evaluation, stage 5, you need some quality control. You could set up a simple automated rule-based check, maybe create a view, call it promptee feedback. This view could automatically scan the AI's response text. Does it contain keywords like percent decline percent or percent drop percent? If yes, maybe automatically mark it as relevant. If not, flag it as needs review for a human analyst to quickly check. It's a basic first pass.
Simple tech, okay. And then automation.
And then automation, stage 6 and 7 combined. The beauty is this whole pipeline can be scheduled. You could create a Snowflake task, say run prompt weekly, that triggers a stored procedure, like run prompt pipeline, once a week. And here's where it gets really powerful, as the source material points out, using a dynamic stored procedure. Instead of hard-coding region A, the procedure can be written to automatically find all the distinct regions present in your VW sales context data. Then it loops through each region, runs the whole analysis, generating the prompt, calling the LLM, logging, evaluating for every single one automatically.
Wow, okay. So it just finds all the regions and generates insights for each one without you doing anything extra.
Exactly. It's a true set it and forget it approach, scaling the insight generation across your entire business landscape automatically.
That really paints a clear picture. Thanks. So let's step back a bit. What does this all really mean for you listening right now? Maybe you're managing complex data. Maybe you're just trying to get faster answers for your next meeting, or maybe you're just curious about where this AI stuff is heading.
Yeah.
Why is this kind of architecture, this PDLC approach, why is it so significant?
Yeah, that's the big question, the so what.
Mm-hmm.
I think this approach is genuinely a game changer because what it does is it strategically embeds these incredibly powerful large language model capabilities, like right into the very heart of your Snowflake data platform.
So it's not separate, it's integrated.
Deeply integrated. And that means you're moving way beyond just, running a few one-off experiments with AI. You're actually creating a repeatable, governed, and truly dynamic pipeline for generating insights. It fundamentally shifts your whole experience. Instead of you having to sift through mountains of raw data, you start receiving these intelligent, auto-generated narratives, these explanations that automatically scale with whatever business context you need at that moment. And because it deeply leverages Snowflake's own strength, things like Snowpark for coding, its powerful SQL engine, those secure external functions, all its built-in secure data operations.
Right, all the core Snowflake features.
Exactly. You get to eliminate the need for those rigid, hard-coded reports that quickly become outdated. Instead, you're bringing the power of AI-driven prompt engineering right into your secure, governed data environment.
That sounds much more flexible.
It is. The entire life cycle we walked through, designing templates, generating prompts dynamically, calling the LLM, logging the feedback, it all becomes orchestrated. It's traceable. You can extend it. What this really does is empower people in different business units to just ask their questions naturally, using plain language. And they can let Snowflake and the LLMs handle all the complex technical stuff underneath.
So simpler for the end user.
Much simpler. The ultimate outcome here, really, is a future-proof system. It's a system where your data can literally speak to you through AI, where insight generation becomes automated, secure, and totally context-aware. And it's all happening directly within the cloud data platform you already trust.
What an incredible transformation we've really dug into today, going from that raw data that often feels like you need a PhD to decipher, to these dynamic, intelligent narratives that can practically hand you the answers you need. It really feels like it's driving a whole new era of data understanding, making it more accessible.
Exactly. It really is about moving beyond those static reports, those snapshots in time, moving towards a genuinely self-evolving insight engine, one where your data isn't just, stored away somewhere. It's actively conversing with you, providing the precise answers you need right when you need them.
So here's a final thought to maybe chew on after this deep dive. Considering the power of a system like this, one that generates intelligent narratives directly from your data, what other areas of your work, or maybe even your personal information management, could benefit from having a self-evolving system, one that turns raw information into smart, actionable narratives automatically?